So I think for me, what I've learned is juice has the ability to kind of be a catalyst.
Mhm.
You know it when you see it,
Mhm.
and so I've realized that you can only make a difference if you're willing to be different.
Well, Brian, so thanks. So glad you could be here today, dude.
Glad to be
Uh,
here, brother. It's been way too long.
I know, man. I've been trying to get you on the podcast for a hot minute,
Mhm.
and life has been turmoil for both of us.
Absolutely,
So,
which it happens.
dude, if you want to take a second and just kind of let people know who you are, what
Yeah.
you do, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Well, Bryan Narcisse, aka Be Nice, 34. Wild to say, but been married for a little over 7 years. Was on staff with FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, for 10 years. Make music. I speak. I'm creative. I played basketball.
Played basketball at Clemson. You had a
Yeah.
stint as a Globetrotter.
So, uh, very, very well traveled, no pun intended.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, dude.
Right. But yeah, I'd say just a multifaceted creative.
Yeah, dude. You have a very interesting story,
Hmm.
and I think probably one of the most of the people that I know personally,
Hmm.
probably the story with the most like ebbs and flows.
I appreciate
I
that.
think you might win the award for the most like I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this story. Because I mean, you got Clemson basketball player,
Hmm.
Globetrotter.
Hmm.
You were on No Big Deal's record as a
Hmm.
feature. Like
Yep.
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
You speaker at FC and ran Clemson's FCA,
Hmm.
one of the largest in the country.
Yeah.
Which is pretty sick. But then also like, stepping into what you're trying to do now of like
Hmm.
more motivational based stuff and things like that is
Hmm.
is is very, very cool too. And I just want to applaud you as a person who also is that exact same way.
I appreciate you. It's funny. It only took me 30 years to realize that that's a product of
Oh,
ADHD.
bro. That's
And now it's like,
yeah,
it
bro.
makes sense now.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a there's a reason I have two businesses. There's a
Yeah.
reason I have two businesses and 100% probably shouldn't,
Yeah.
but have four podcasts, two businesses and
Partridge in a pear tree.
yeah, yeah, exactly, and a family.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, dude, no, it's very not it's very interesting, but it's
Hmm.
also very I would say good for people to look at and see
Hmm.
that for both of us, really, it's like I'm 33, about to be
Hmm.
34 this year. You
Yep.
just turned 34.
Hmm.
Happy birthday,
Thank you. Thank
congratulations,
you.
dude.
Thank you.
And like it's cool to like not have it figured out.
Yeah.
Like you can
Oh
just try
man,
stuff, bro.
that's been the biggest lesson that I've learned, especially in the last couple of years. Is like, even though I'm not in college ministry anymore, being in college ministry for as long as I was, there's a lot of students that are trying to figure out life.
Mm.
And the best part that the best piece of advice that I've been able to give is don't feel like you have to have it all figured out.
Oh yeah, dude.
Because I think, and recently had this revelation with somebody through a conversation within the last week, is, elementary school is a finite amount of time, middle school, finite, high school, finite,
Mhm.
college should be finite, but some people
Yeah.
find the path to being a forever student.
Oh yeah.
But the reality is when you graduate and you're in the real world, there really is no like, okay, how
Yeah.
how long until the next season, And so
You're kind of just in the void.
and so there's this idea that you sometimes feel like you have to have it figured out
Mhm.
once you start. And I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
What you're gonna be doing now, and I think even well-meaning questions that get asked to college students is like, well, what do you want to do? 10 years from now, what do you want to be doing?
Sure.
And I think if you really look at, especially with the way technology and things are advancing, like, could you imagine 10 years ago telling somebody, yeah, I'm gonna be a TikTok influencer.
Dude, so that's wild you say that. I was listening to there's an episode. I don't know if you know Colin and Smear. They have
Oh yeah,
a great,
absolutely.
great, great show. They
Yep.
recently had on the founder and CEO of Snapchat,
Okay.
and they were talking about like that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Samir and the founder of Snapchat
Mm-hmm.
like came from the same area. They
Mm-hmm.
kind of grew up at this, came up at the same time, and they were talking about how crazy it is that if you look at that point in time,
Mm-hmm.
you would not have known. Like Samir was like, I wanted to be a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time I got to the point where it was time for me to get a job, it was impossible to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
And YouTube was my filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And now 15 years later after that,
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at that as like a viable, very viable, and honestly sought after industry for
Yes.
people to have like lasting careers,
Mm-hmm.
huge careers. One of the most famous people in the world is a YouTuber.
Yes.
Multiple of them actually are
Mm-hmm.
YouTubers in some
Mm-hmm.
capacity. And then you have people like Cristiano Ronaldo
Speed runs
speed
into
running YouTube. Exactly, dude. It's
speed runs into
crazy.
10 million.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like,
Dude.
there are people who will never touch that number
No.
in years, decades of doing YouTube. My man got it in a weekend. He said, "Oh, I guess I'll do this YouTube thing."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, but it's crazy. It's like even the people that are at the top
Mm-hmm.
are like, I should make a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Like that sounds cool. That's a sought after thing.
It's still very new and
Yeah.
recent,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is which how long it's been around.
Yeah, like 2005, something like that. So it's been 20 years, and only now it's being like
Yep.
viewed as a viable like job,
Mm-hmm.
like a thing that you should. Oh yeah, if you're starting a business, you
Mhm.
have to have a YouTube channel. That is like almost a
Mm-hmm.
like I was telling you about what I do. It's like
Mhm.
it's essentially built into marketing
Yes.
firms at this point. Is like you got to have a presence
Mm-hmm.
in that capacity, or on Instagram or on TikTok or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
I have nieces and nephews, and so the thought that, when we were coming up in elementary school, middle school, what did you want to be? The outlandish thing was like, oh, I want to be a model, I want to be an athlete, I want to be in movies and things like that. You have people that are saying, I want to be a content creator.
Oh,
I
yeah.
want to be a streamer,
Yeah.
and it's like those avenues aren't as far-fetched as
No.
being in the NBA, being in the NFL. Like some of those things you
got
were.
dudes like Destroying
Mm-hmm.
who wanted to be in the NFL.
Yep.
Did the content route,
Mhm.
now is like the content creator for the NFL.
Absolutely.
Like I would argue the number one like content liaison for the
Mhm.
NFL. Gets all the games, gets to do these cool things, gets to do these watch parties, like all this cool stuff.
And it's interesting because you don't always see there isn't always a correlation to being an early adopter
No.
and getting the success that he's gotten.
No. Yeah.
But I think part of his fight early on with the amateurism and everything, I think paved a way for a lot of people to consider that this is not only a viable option, but also a sought out like avenue of not just revenue, but attention. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the name of the game now.
Dude, we're talking about not having it figured out. I'm avid podcast listener, you know me.
Mhm.
I was listening to Tim Ferriss talk with
Mhm.
Brandon Sanderson. So
Okay.
you know Brandon Sanderson, he's
Yeah.
he's an author, he's a fantasy
Okay.
author.
Yeah.
One of my favorite fantasy authors.
Okay.
Writes these like 1,000-page book,
Okay.
like kind of
Yeah,
fantasy
maybe.
author.
Okay.
But one of the largest people claim him as like the modern Tolkien. He's
Gotcha.
like that
Okay.
on that level.
Yeah.
Amazing author, writes a bunch of cool stuff.
Cool.
And Tim Ferriss just recently, like I think a couple days ago, maybe last week, put out an episode where it's like a 3-hour podcast of them just talking.
Mm-hmm.
And Brandon's talking about how, as a writer in the early 2000s, late 90s, there was really only one way to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's go, you meet people, you find out what they want, you find the people that are looking for what you're making, and then you give them to that.
Right.
That avenue actually is pretty consistent with what you find now,
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting.
Yep.
But the difference is that Brandon also took the advice of your first 5 books are going to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, all right, I'm going to write 6.
I
And
like
he
that.
wrote, which
Yeah.
what a baller mindset,
I know, right?
bro.
I'm
What
like,
a
you know
baller
what?
mindset. I mean, but you're talking 100,000 words is a 300-page book. And he wrote,
and that's just the
5 of them, bro, before he even wrote the one that he was like, all right, I'm starting to pitch
Mhm.
this one. Then this is a testament to
Mhm.
just like the resiliency of a person.
Yeah.
Wrote 5 books, about roughly, 100,000 words, which
Mhm.
is insane, 350 pages, and wrote his 6th one, which is the first one that he actually got pitched,
Mhm.
or started pitching, which was his book Elantris. And, it's about that same length.
Mhm.
Then, but started pitching that, didn't get picked up until
Mhm.
he had written book 12.
Mm.
It took him 6 more books to find an agent, to find an editor, to
Mhm.
find somebody. He got picked up by Tor, but to find like the publication company to pick him up,
Yeah.
to get the right book in their hands, to
Mhm.
edit it all, then he gets published.
Yeah.
And his first, he talked about this. He's like, his first payout check was $10,000. $10,000,
Jeez.
$5,000 up front, and then
Mhm.
$2,500 for 2 years after that, a
Mm.
year. That's it. For 12, like that
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
12. So let's say 100,000 words. 1,200,000 words, dude. That's crazy.
Mhm.
Like,
But that's the reality of, I think, a lot of people who do go into the content space. They expect it to be fast.
oh yeah.
And the reality is you have to be willing to put time in it. So we both come from a music background, and so you probably have seen the amount of people that will put so much effort and energy into making music, and you got to invest so much
Yeah.
just for you to even break even.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the reality is 95% of people in music don't even get there.
No, yeah. They don't even make enough money to live.
Right. And so, but it's the perspective that you have to have is like, it's going to take time.
Mm-hmm.
And in a generation where everything is instantaneous,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole nother tangent.
Sure.
I promise I don't want to go down,
Sure.
but that is the one thing that I think I fear the most with AI is
Interesting.
the process of creating will be so fast that the expectation of return on investment is only going to get faster.
Sure. Does not necessarily mean it'll be good.
Right.
Yeah. Doesn't necessarily mean it'll be good. I've seen lots of things written by AI that aren't necessarily great.
Mhm.
Surprisingly, I've seen some that are fantastic.
Sure.
But it's very few and far between by comparison.
Yeah.
But you're right. The expectation will be set that, I finished a thing.
Mhm.
Because we already have the we're not going to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I do want to like
Sure. Yeah.
make
No,
this
you're good.
comparison, which
Absolutely.
is like we already have the instance of people saying, "Look, I did a thing, and
Mhm.
because I did a thing, I deserve to make a living off this thing."
Yep.
And regardless of how long it took them to do that thing, it's only gotten shorter.
Mhm.
So we'll say, "Look, I shot a YouTube video. It's crappy, not thumbnailed. I had no idea what I was doing. Title's awful.
Mhm.
I don't know anything about content creation or anything like that. But I made a YouTube video.
Mhm.
Therefore, I deserve to make money off this."
Yep.
Which is not how it works.
No, not at all.
It's not how it works. I mean, even in music, it's like, I paid a guy, and we'll go on the opposite end. It's like, I paid a guy, $10,000 to help me produce this song and mix it, and it's got mixed by all this stuff and
Mhm.
mastered by this crazy good mastering engineer and all this stuff.
Paid
And
for
bought
a
this
music
beat,
video.
bought this beat from this guy and all this stuff, and it's
Mhm.
like, yeah, I mean that's fine, but the song's trash.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's going to be good at all, and you don't deserve to be paid for that. You deserve to have the you do it to deserve to have the ability to say, look what I did. I'm
Mhm.
proud of this thing.
Yep.
That's perfectly valid. But the fact that you need to feel that you need to be compensated on the other end in any form or fashion, I think
Mhm.
is ridiculous.
Yes, and that's unfortunately where I see many people about to approach the art space and content
Yeah,
space.
that's very, very interesting. I think the problem with that is I think our barometer for what is good
Mhm.
will always be kind of high.
Sure.
And our barometer for being able to sniff out what's been like kind of half baked
Mhm.
will only get better.
Yes, it definitely will.
It'll only get better. And because of that, I worry about the mental health side of it, like you
Mhm.
kind of
Yep.
said.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I think the consistency is going to be tried and true
Yeah.
to what makes you good,
Yes.
right? We were reading a book, and you know the YouTuber Andrew Wong,
Yes.
uh, incredible music producer,
Okay.
incredible YouTuber. He's one of the most creative people that I pay attention to
Mhm.
online. Insanely talented, uh, and he was talking about how like the consistency for him is the thing that made him better. It's the thing that it's the atomic habit rule, right?
Mhm.
It's the 1% every
Yep.
day. It's
Mhm.
the you do a thing consistently. You
Mhm.
don't worry about quality.
Yeah.
Alex Ramosi talks about this too.
Yep.
Quality comes from consistency.
Mhm.
So you do a thing a lot, put a ton of effort into doing it the most amount of times you can. You want the most reps, the feedback loop to be as short as
Mhm.
possible. So that you can then get to the end of that feedback loop, make your change,
Mhm.
and then reiterate.
Yes. But it's a process, and so many people are not willing to go through the process.
If you're enjoying this podcast episode, you might like my newsletter, The Music Maker's Handbook. In this newsletter, I dissect everything from books, podcasts, YouTube videos, to bring you insights from people across different creative landscapes. It's also a great way to keep up with me, the Home Studio Hangout podcast, and I'm very excited to be showcasing people from the community's projects as well. You can go to the link in the description or go to musicbydrew.com, my website, and sign up there. Now let's get back to the episode.
It's pretty crazy. Well, I'd love to touch on how maybe like a quick story of how you got to where you're at right now.
Sure.
Because, you know, we mentioned a lot of the kind of the cool things that you've done and all
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. And, you know, into
Mhm.
basketball
Yep.
your whole life. And
Yeah.
that probably directed a lot of the early years of,
Yeah.
you know, the choice to go to Clemson and then,
Mhm.
you know, doing the Globetrotters thing is
Yeah.
very interesting also. So it's
Yeah.
like maybe get that era of your basketball era.
Sure. Yeah. So basketball era. I have to mention that it started. I was actually in kindergarten when I was 3 years old. So I don't. Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot
Yeah.
of layers to my
Yeah.
story, and so like I was very young, and I grew up playing with my grade in rec ball, not my age.
Mm.
So, when I was 10, I was playing with 12-year-olds and kind of as we went on. And then
Yeah.
eventually I was playing middle school, got cut the very first time I tried out for the middle school team, but I was 11.
Mm.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like in context,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
But I did eighth grade twice
Okay.
because on the pace that I was on, I would have been entering high school at 12,
Mm.
if you can imagine.
Yeah, and your build would have been very
Yeah, I
weird.
hadn't hit my growth spurt
Yeah,
yet, and
yeah.
I was and the thing is, I had book smarts,
Mhm.
but I was immature. I did
Yeah.
not have social skills, and that's just not a good place
High
to.
school's not a place that you wanna go into without social
Yeah,
skills if you can help it.
absolutely not.
If you can
So,
help it.
yeah, so, thankfully, the running joke in my family is I took a red shirt year
No, no.
and, and, did not play middle school, but I practiced with the high school team,
Gotcha.
that 2nd, 8th grade year. But, my dad was a basketball coach, so I used to always go to his practices. He did not coach at the school that I was attending.
Mhm.
He coached at a school in Augusta, Georgia. But when I was younger, I used to always just be the kid in the gym, working on my game, on the side and watching
Getting the
practice.
shots in.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, I have um, the consistency, the full of data of where I put in the hours,
Mhm.
you know, whether it was, going to practices with him, playing in the driveway, rec ball, travel ball, all of that. And get to high school and, kind of speed running through the story a bit. Um, went to a basketball camp and well, before that, went to an FCA camp
Mhm.
that where I realized that basketball had become an idol in my life.
Mhm.
And I mention that because basketball truly did, and I mean, in that early phase, like kind of give me purpose,
Mhm.
as somebody who was very immature, didn't have social school skills. Basketball was how I related to people. So, I would talk to people about stats and like I was a walking sports center,
Yeah.
just like different stuff, loved video games. And but learning that as good as basketball is, centering your whole life around it, is kind of a recipe for disaster.
Mm.
And it was really good that I got that perspective before I got to college. I didn't know that Clemson would be where I'd end up,
Mhm.
but yeah. So, life change, heart change into my junior year. And then interestingly enough, after that is when I started to actually get noticed. Playing basketball. Like I was getting a interest, but I really didn't like hold a lot of offers to
Mhm.
places. Um, right before my senior season, I actually signed my letter of intent to Western Kentucky University. And then March comes around, Western Kentucky makes the Sweet 16. Coaching staff ends up getting an offer to go to another school in a Power Five conference. And so then I'm kind of left, 2 months before graduation, kind of with my college decision up in the air, go and play in an all-star game where I'm playing against guys that are committed to NC State, Wake Forest, Miami, App State, a
Mm.
bunch of, big time
Yeah.
programs. And I have a pretty solid game. And Clemson had been interested, but they had not offered prior to that point. But the showing at the game, I kind of ended up back on their radar.
Mhm.
They came and watched me work out at an open gym to kind of see, what else I was able to bring. They invited me up to the campus for a tour and offered me a scholarship, kind of on the spot. And it
Heck yeah.
was, I mean, truly, I tell people there's no other way to explain what happened except that God opened the doors and
Yeah.
He closed the doors in the right time, in the right season.
Mhm.
I mean, 2 months before graduation is, high school is when I got my degree.
That's crazy.
And it's not like I didn't hold a single other Power Five offer. A lot of times
Mhm.
people are like, oh, you got to get recruited, to the point where you have like, options.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's like, I mean, you can have options, but you can really only commit to one school.
Yeah.
So,
And Clemson to you was a lot more local and
yes, very, very much
meant a
so.
lot more.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. So my mom went to Georgia, but I grew up in South Carolina, and so naturally by um, proximity,
Yeah.
did not like South Carolina,
Exactly.
preferred Clemson. My
Exactly.
next door neighbors were actually big Clemson fans too. So
Made
that
an
was
easy choice too.
that was a fun. I remember we were coming back from the visit at Clemson, and we're like, well, we can't tell anybody yet. But we got to tell the neighbors.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so like so went over because they were
That's
at the
funny.
signing with Western Kentucky, and so I remember going over to the house with my dad, and we're like, yeah, I just wanted to let you know before you hear it from anybody else, that I decommitted from Western Kentucky. And they're like, just understand, you work hard. I know you're gonna, find a good place. And it's like, well, actually, it just got back from a visit and gonna sign with the school I just went to. And so I'll actually be playing for Clemson.
And then
And so they lost their mind. They're like, you are joking. Like, so that's cool. Being an in-state kid, being able to play at a place like Clemson. So and so again, if you're still following the math, I graduated high school at 17. So I am on an ACC basketball team at 17 years old. And again, I would still say I'm more mature than I was, but still, as
Yeah.
mature as you can be.
Sure.
Um, and man, I tell people after my freshman year, I almost quit basketball
Oh, at
because
Clemson?
at Clemson,
I bet
because
it's rough, dude. I
it,
can't imagine, like, I've heard people talk about it just like in interviews and stuff,
mhm,
and it's just an all-consuming thing, and the expectations are just so high, and the
yes.
pressure,
Hmm.
and like putting that on an 18, 19-year-old
Hmm.
is one thing, but even a 17-year-old has got to be
Hmm.
just like so much more difficult.
Yeah, it was way more than I expected, and thankfully, I got plugged into a community through FCA, through my church, and really started to navigate. Okay, there are other people who have n- navigated these waters before
Yeah.
and made it work. And so the biggest thing for me was kind of trying to get back to that joy.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big energy guy whenever I played. Just that's how I played in high school. So naturally, that was then my role when I got to
Yeah.
Clemson. And for me, I understood that I may not be the most polished
Mm-hmm.
player. I have 6'6" height, 7 foot wingspan, and a 44-inch vertical. But the biggest weapon that I am able to use with all of that is just my activity and
Mm-hmm.
energy.
You're
And
gonna
so,
outwork them.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's what I brought to the table. And so I wanted to make sure that every single time I went out there, like I just exhaust the moment.
Yeah.
And I realized, in as I was going through it, it just really felt like I was fulfilling a role. I very much had a survivor, mentality of
Mm-hmm.
like, I understand I need to do this job,
Yeah.
as far as like bringing energy, showing up, doing that so that I can continue to be on this team, to be at this school, have school paid for. Um, but I guess I didn't realize the impact that, even bringing energy like that was providing to people. Like people still come up to me, and I'm over 10 years removed from
Mm-hmm.
playing. People will say like, you were one of my favorite people to watch. And I'm
Dang.
like, man, there's like my name will never be in the rafters in
Yeah.
Little John Coliseum. Um, but there are people that I had an impact on their Clemson athletic experience
Mm-hmm.
just from when they watched me play.
Yeah.
And I think that's so cool.
Yeah, dude. That's how did you get the music bug? When the music bug come in?
So music kind of was morphed from poetry initially.
Okay.
So I told you my dad was a coach. My mom was also a coach, but she also was a writer
Mm-hmm.
and did poetry. And so when I was in middle school was when wrote my first poem.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like a roses are red, violets are
Sure.
blue, but it was a pretty short poem.
Yeah.
And poetry and writing for me was a way to express my emotions and feelings and what I was thinking. Again, as somebody that didn't know that I had ADHD,
Yeah.
I didn't know how to process all the things that I'm thinking, all the things that I'm feeling.
Mhm.
And, I had an outlet through sports, but
On the
then
physical
on the
side.
physical side of it, but,
Yeah.
the mental and emotional side, I
Yeah.
was still kind of,
It's kind of tough. People, and I feel like I actually feel like that's pretty rampant in sports,
mm-hmm,
right? You have these dudes or
mm-hmm,
girls or
yeah,
whoever of like they have this thing that they're doing and they're bought into and they're like, we work out, we
mm-hmm,
play hard, and that's the thing.
yeah,
And that's all physical
yep,
and nothing on the mental to
mm-hmm,
balance them out. And
right,
then they get out of the game
yeah,
and then they're like, oh, I haven't worked on
mm-hmm,
any mental muscle at all
mm-hmm.
this whole time I've been.
And then they found their whole identity in this thing that they no longer can do.
Mhm.
And then that's when a lot of people hit a lot of rough spots, a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
rough patches. And so for me, writing was, kind of my outlet, being able to tell stories and connect dots.
Yeah.
And so my first real um, foray into like writing my own music
Mhm.
was actually senior year of high school. So
Okay.
I was involved in a lot of clubs,
Yep.
and I was actually in charge of our homecoming pep rally.
Okay.
And so we did this big thing that basically was like a red carpet show. So we had different people in our school like performing stuff. And I decided to remix. This is gonna date me, and you'll understand this. I decided to remix Walk
Oh,
It Out.
yeah.
And I performed it in front of a school
Oh,
at our pep
sick.
rally. And
With bars?
with bars, and it
Oh,
was like
nice.
tailor made to like our
Oh,
school, the
nice.
team we
That's
were playing,
sick.
you know, that night and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So that was fun. So at at the time it was just, you know, really cool, but
Sure.
it the seed was planted. So then when I got to college, I just started continuing to write and got connected. So I was very plugged into New Spring Church.
Mhm.
And the very first time that I served at Fuse, their student ministry, I got invited to come rap. I had written a remix to A Millie.
Nice.
And I performed that there. And so then just being around other musicians.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those where like it was a hobby until I got around people who were serious about it.
Yeah.
You know,
It'll
and
change your mentality about it
and
really
you
quick.
realize like, okay, I may have something here. Now that doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily, I don't know if this is ever going to be something that pays the bills,
Sure.
but it's definitely a craft that, you know, I should probably put a little bit more effort into
Yeah.
honing.
Well, writing in general can come in the form of, I mean, Shama isn't a
Mhm.
rapper,
Yeah.
but Shama raps
Mhm.
on songs,
Yeah.
and I would argue is very good at it, better
Yes.
than a lot of people.
Yeah. No, you're right.
And but that just comes from him like practicing the writing. It gives them
Yes.
opportunities to get better at telling jokes because he's just writing good punchlines
Yep.
in rap
Mhm.
constantly.
Yeah.
So in the same thing, it's like it can be a thing that you do that affects other things or give
Mhm.
you other opportunities to do other things as well.
Yes. So with music for me, you know, it opened the door for me honestly to have like on the court, my style of play set me apart,
Mm-hmm.
but also I wore goggles when I played.
Yeah.
Now, I wish I could, you know, there are so many people that I've talked to, and it's like, now that's somebody that's very secure in who they are if they're willing to wear goggles. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if it was that, but
Not sure if it was secure or just like I
don't care.
Just don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it really was more I just didn't
I
care.
just didn't care. Yeah.
But the fact of, you know, for me, making music was something that set me apart from my teammates, from all the other athletes, that people were like, "Oh, yo, did you know he raps too?" You know, it's like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, so
I mean, yeah. That's and then coming up with all the homies and watching them succeed is probably pretty cool. RG
yes,
and Dilly
man,
and
absolutely, man. It's wild, you know, the amount of so many people, because they don't get the opportunity to be in those circles, don't realize that most of the people that you see at the top or kind of up there were grinding their way, you
Oh,
know,
dude.
10 years ago, 15 years ago.
we talked about this like off camera, like one of the first times we met. But it's like you watched, especially Deal, like climb.
Intern Dilly.
Yeah, dude. Like, dude, scrape his way
Yeah.
to what he has now.
But the beautiful part is, you know, and I think because of my background in sports and just some of the relationships that I had encountered and experienced, like we just built a genuine friendship initially. It wasn't immediately like, yo, bro, we need to work together, you know? Because I think a lot of times those come with good intentions, but sometimes they don't have the best.
For sure. Outcomes, for sure.
And
And also, I don't know, man. It's cool. I always tell people this, like with music stuff too. It's like, it's always better to just like go find a cool person to hang out with.
yes.
Absolutely. And if something happens, that's cool. But
for sure,
it doesn't have to start with, you know, we should work together.
But you know, like and even not to that point, but again, like in a lot of ways, I feel like I am an early adopter, and it's not just because of, starting school early, but like I just kind of have grown over the years to see things sometimes before the rest of the world sees it. And it's not even like, oh, a tip of the cap to me. I think it's just, again, my ADHD, and I catch things, it's like,
Constantly
oh yeah,
looking for a new thing.
yeah, basically.
That's what it is. Yeah, it's entrepreneur brain.
So like I can remember two examples of that I would say like, oh, I'm not homies with them. I'm not, but it's like core memories of like, oh yeah, I saw this person, in concert once upon a time.
Yeah.
I saw John Bellion in a full band in a small venue. I still have those videos, and it's just like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah. I remember going and, seeing Toby Nwigwe before the world shut down. And
he popped off.
And I told people, and they're like, oh, cool, yeah, no, all right. And then
you showed me Toby the first time, like I think in 2019 or something like that. 2018,
and that was when I went and saw him. And so that was, I can remember people, or like I told somebody, and I was like, wait, that concert that you came in town for, that was for Toby? And I was like, yeah. I was like, what?
He was nobody then.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like, so he started out under Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher. So he had, again, somebody that had been grinding and just kind of been doing his thing behind the scenes.
And a crew built around him and stuff. Yep.
So the thing is, if you kind of are willing to play the decade long game, the Brandon Saracen, all right, the first 5 are going to be bad. All right, write 6. Be willing to write 6.
And then be willing to write 12.
And I even think about it like that is like, okay, the first 5 gave you the confidence to write the 6 and put it out there, but then you almost had to then put out, like, sell yourself for 5 and learn what works, what doesn't
and
work.
Then finally you get one.
Yeah. And so, it's a lost art to have patience in creating.
Oh, for sure. I think, well, back to the other conversation of everybody wants to be the Mr. Beast. Everybody wants to be the Gary Vaynerchuk. Everybody wants to be the Alex Hormozy. Everybody wants to be the Brandon Sanderson, or the No Big Deal of who, or the Toby Nwigwe is a really good example of like a guy who seemingly came out of nowhere.
Yes.
John Bellion, I think most people know his grind at this point.
Yes, I would agree.
I think he's talked about it enough. I think most people know, but like Toby's a very good example of somebody who 2018, 200, 300 cap rooms. 2021, like
stadiums.
Yes, the freaking 3,000-4,000 cap venues. Yeah, it's crazy. And getting to do all of this cool like TV stuff and writing for the Transformers movie and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But again, to another point, it goes back to relationships. Sometimes, you meet somebody and you just build a genuine relationship. Like, I mean, as much as we've talked,
dude,
we still haven't put anything out yet, have we?
No, not yet.
I know of one
yet.
that
not yet. Yeah.
that notice that the operative word is yet.
Yeah,
I'm not
fault.
saying anything.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
that's
yet.
Shama's fault.
But the reality is we've just always built the connection, and it's been good. And the opportunity to come and just chop it up.
Yeah, dude.
So we've been doing podcasts before we've been recording.
Yeah, but dude. They have no clue.
Yeah.
I think every phone call we've had has been a podcast.
Yes.
Where it's been like an hour and a half later. All right, dude, I guess I got to go.
Right.
Might as well have just recorded this and put it out. So high school, went to college.
Yep.
You were kind of doing music at that time. You were all around these people. You kind of watched the come up of, the homies like truly succeed. RG, Dill, truly succeed by every mention of the word of the music industry. It's very, very cool. Globetrotters, how did that happen?
Yeah, so the end of my senior year, I got invited to participate in the College Slam Dunk Contest, which is only invited to seniors. They only take 8. And as with everything in my life, it happened last minute. So the contest was Thursday in New Orleans. And I got a call Tuesday afternoon of that week.
Yeah.
Of whether or not asking if I still wanted to be in it. And I was kind of glad it worked out that way because I was preparing to do it and then I stopped kind of the week of and just rested. And it was great because if I'd have kept working, I wouldn't have had a good showing. I was
Yeah.
trying so hard to like
Show
be able to
out.
perform and do
Yeah.
that, but like I got the much needed rest that I needed. Even down to we had whenever so they booked my flight Wednesday morning. They gave us an opportunity to shoot around at the gym on Wednesday
Okay.
that we were going to do the dunk contest. It's on record in the broadcast and everything. I didn't perform a single dunk at the shoot around.
Dang.
But what I did was I coordinated with this girl named Brittany who played at Purdue. She was gonna throw me an alley-oop for one of my dunks. And literally I just had her practice the pass. I didn't even try the dunk. I said, I just want to see you do the pass. And I saw where it landed. And I was like, cool, we're good. I'll trust me. In the adrenaline of the moment,
We'll
I'll
nail
get there.
this, yeah.
Yes. But again, I also didn't want to burn myself out.
Well, and you didn't want to hit your good one.
I didn't want to. Yeah, I didn't want to give too much away.
Yeah,
I'm a
early.
guy that
Yeah.
is very well studied when it comes to the dunk contest.
Yeah.
And so I had a list of dunks that I wanted to do.
Gotcha.
Contest rolls around, nail my first dunk, so then I make it to the semifinals. Then I get 2 dunks. First dunk was okay. Second dunk was the one that we rehearsed and got a perfect score on. Just missed making the finals. So I got 3rd.
Nice.
And that's actually where the Globetrotters recruited me from.
Gotcha.
So getting 3rd in the college slam dunk contest. And what that looked like was they formally drafted me. So like I actually have a Globetrotter jersey that is kind of like, the draft day jersey, and kind of did the photo op and everything.
Actually.
It really is. I was kind of glad, like in hindsight,
That
I don't have
that cool.
I don't have a whole lot of like I have like some Globetrotter gear, but I don't
Sure.
have like the jersey that had "Be Nice" on the back. I don't have that. I have Narcisse on the back, but that's because that was my draft day jersey.
Yeah.
But I mean,
you hadn't gotten the name yet.
no. And so I formally was drafted, and that basically just meant I was invited to try out. And tryout for the Globetrotters was 3 hours long of playing basketball. And then probably about 2.5 of playing basketball, 30 of just like, all right, you have any tricks or whatever
Yeah,
you
it's
do.
a lot of personality too.
Yes, and then it
Looking
was a
at your
30-minute, and then it was a
personality,
30-minute interview. And I realized that, there's a lot of people that have really good background in basketball. There's a lot of people who have really good PR skills, media skills. And then there's some people who have, tricks and capability and things. But being able to have all 3.
Yeah, it's kind of a particular person.
So the 20 people that tried out, I was one of 3 that got offered a full-time position right out the gate.
Yeah.
But I realized again, like, and even though I played at a place like Clemson, I still had my struggles when it came to basketball. Again, I wasn't a very polished player.
Yeah.
And so, but the thing is with the Globetrotters, if you have a base of basketball knowledge, they can teach you the tricks. They can teach anybody the tricks.
Yeah.
So, but
well, especially, I mean, if you're coming in 3rd in a dunk contest, like you got to be at least good enough.
Yes.
So like they can teach you how to do
All
the
passes
really
and
weird, like
eccentric
eccentric shot, or the weird like triple play, like weird ends on a cool dunk or something.
Yeah.
Or, you're smart enough at basketball to be at a top 5 school.
Exactly.
And you came in 3rd in a dunk contest. You're probably good if you got the personality side down. You're probably good enough.
So then the training camp for the Globetrotters was a week long, and it was 9 hours a day in the gym.
I was gonna say, I can imagine for something that feels so spectacle.
Yeah.
After having worked in production for entertainment-based things, I can't imagine how grueling something like that would be. That's both so entertainment focused and physical focused.
It was, especially being a dunker. The dunker spots are primarily for your newer guys because of the wear and tear on your body. So for frame of reference, I played more games in my 1 year with the Globetrotters than I did my 4 years at Clemson.
Jeez.
So
Because
And
when you were on tour with them, it's how many nights a week?
well, during the North American tour, it was 7 nights, you know. So we
Cool.
Christmas Day flew out to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I am on the road until April 22nd.
Straight every day.
Straight every day.
God.
Now, we had days where we might be traveling,
Sure.
but that wasn't necessarily, I mean, like, it was an off day, but it wasn't
It's not
an
an
off
day.
day.
Yeah, you don't like tour band off days are you're in a city an extra day, or you get to the city early and you're just in the city, like walking around doing whatever on your off day. Like that's not a real, like, travel days are not off days.
No. So we had, you know, so we were the West Coast unit. So we went all through California. We did Vegas. We also did the Southeast, but we did California. And one of the stops we were stationed at a hotel, and then we just went out to the different cities. So rather than having to every single night change hotels, we actually kind of had a little bit of stability, a little bit of consistency. And that was actually a really cool run too. So one of the shows that we did, we got done, and then it actually worked out that I was able to catch Ruslan at the House of Blues for a show. He left me tickets. I left him Globetrotter tickets. It was a good trade-off. But just being able to do stuff like that, you know, because I'm traveling literally all over the world.
Yeah.
I don't know people in
You just
Dallas.
connect with some cool people, though.
Yeah. So it's dope.
Dude, what a homie.
Yeah.
Shout out Ruslan, dude.
Shout out Ruslan.
Shout out Ruslan. He's a friend of a friend. I've not ever had the pleasure of meeting him.
Man,
like,
y'all gotta connect. Y'all
I know,
he's
dude.
a good dude.
That's what Ray Rock says.
Yes.
You know Ray? Have you met Ray?
So I only know Ray through Ruslan.
Through Ruslan? Okay, yeah.
But I don't know
Ray's
Ray.
Andy's like one of his main DJs. And yeah, Ray's Jim. I would call Ray Rock a mentor to me as a music producer and business person.
Yeah.
Like, he's a very, very smart man. Very well intentioned dude.
And it's great to have those people, man. Like, you know, you realize how many layers there really are to a business, to you know, trying to build a community. You know, you see, again, everybody sees the polished product, but they don't know what goes on behind the scenes.
I need to tell you the story of how I met
Okay.
Ray Rock. So Ray Rock knew Shama.
Yep.
Obviously first. And that's how I got connected through Ray. Is also how I met Dave.
Okay. Yep.
So me and Dave and Shama all met at the same show. It was one of Andy Minio's tours.
Yep.
And they do the show. It's killer. You know, Andy, great showmanship.
Yep.
Ray Rock, DJ wise, like incredible showmanship. One of the GOATs in that scene.
Dope.
And he's talking to me, and I'm like, yeah, dude, great job, blah, 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 blah. And Shama goes, Ray, you need to talk to Andrew about Ableton, because Andrew is like the wizard. And Ray goes, are you? And I said, I mean, I've been doing it for a really long time, so that's kind of my main thing. He goes, come here. And he walks back with me, sits me down in front of Andy Minio, and goes, fix our set. We have these problems. Here's what, and I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
And I fix it for the tour.
That's
which
wild.
is hilarious.
That is a great story. I love
what
that.
a wild day to come through. I bet I came through.
There you go.
But it's very similar to what you're talking about. It's like life happens slow, and then all of a sudden, right? And it's like that has just turned into me and Ray Rock having a really good relationship. I got to reconnect with Andy when he was in town. And that was really fun, and you know he's always been really kind to me and great people. And you know, it's the same for what you're talking about with like the Globetrotters thing and the Clemson thing, or even the music stuff. It's like it's kind of a testament to how I think people should be, which is like never plan for the thing to happen, but always be ready for the thing to happen.
Yes.
Like be willing and flexible to pivot.
Yes.
As quickly as possible. That's the name of the game, right?
So with the Globetrotters, it fused not only my athletic ability as a dunker, but it also fused my entertainer as a rapper. So one of the only clips that still exists on YouTube from my time with the Globetrotters is a video they would play before the game, and it was literally me beatboxing Sweet Georgia Brown.
Oh, dude, I'm gonna have to find that clip.
I'm sure you will.
I'll have to find that.
I have no doubt in my mind.
I'll have to find that clip.
And it, like I'd have to hear it every single game, and I'd be like, but but again, that's something that's different.
Yeah, it's different.
And
who's gonna come with that?
Nobody.
Yeah.
But I think that's where I have, even if I didn't necessarily have the words for it at the time, like I was discovering my juice essentially,
sure.
like what is unique to me
that
allows me to stand out.
Well, that's a really good segue into like kind of more of what you're doing now.
Mhm.
So Globetrotter's done.
Mhm.
We talked about this, I think, one of the first times we met, because I was like, dude, what happened there?
Mhm.
And you were like, it was just, like you said, 7 days a week, bro.
Mhm.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of wear and tear on your body. It's a lot of wear and tear on your mental.
Mhm.
You weren't married at that point?
Not at that point.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, if I
Yes.
want to ever have a family, something's got to change.
Yeah.
And so you made the pivot over to FCA stuff, and then that
Yep.
kind of ran its course. And now you're doing what you're doing now, which is maybe talk a little bit about that, like the juice stuff and the content around that. And
Yeah. So, did, ministry for 10 years, and you and I both know this, whether someone's in vocational ministry or not, if they're a believer, they're in ministry.
Oh yeah.
And especially if you are an artist, I think sometimes what that ministry looks like, that can be, that can bring about a lot of conflict, because there's so many people that feel like, oh, well, you got to do it one way or you got to do it another way.
Yeah.
And so it's been a really interesting journey the last year or so of, kind of navigating, what is the Lord kind of stirring in my heart, and, the concept of juice has really been, planted, no pun intended. You're gonna hear a lot of that. It's just naturally there.
Yeah.
But the seed was planted, almost back in 2020 or 2021. The earliest was Holy Smoke. So that was
now Smoke Fest, right?
Now Smoke Fest. Yeah. But going there and realizing, man, I really do have a gift as far as creating and whatnot, and I need to not be so treasured or guarded with the things that I create. And so the project, the Juice Box, was a 6-song EP, and that was made maybe in 3-4 months.
Okay.
Like I was for compared to all my other projects, music, I think I had done 3 mixtapes and another EP.
Yeah.
Compared to those, like this was relatively sped run. Like it was quick.
Yeah.
And the idea was have an idea, write the song, record it, once you get a collection, ship it. And so that's kind of how Juice Box 1 came out. Juice Box 2 eventually, and then I even made Juice Box 3, but the reason why Juice Box 3 never came out is because I realized that I was starting to get so far over into replicating my influences that I was almost cosplaying the UK rap.
Yeah, Heady One.
Yeah, and so it was hard to listen to, because I'm like, this is stuff that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to put my own spin on it, but it just went I don't even know if I sent you the project. If I didn't, I apologize. But it's like there was some grime songs on there.
I think you sent me a couple tracks.
And just being a kid from South Carolina, it's not exactly gonna go
different. Yeah.
But what I realized, like, okay, and it's not always about this, but I think I was listening to your podcast, one of your recent podcasts, and understanding that content and creating as a means to an end, and it's like, okay, I'm making music. I still enjoy making music, but it's a lot of investment into making music. But what are people paying me for? People are paying me to train them in basketball, to coach, So I did the basketball tips for a while on TikTok. That went
Yeah.
viral, but I'm like, I don't really want to do that. So I
You
stopped.
ran that road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I did the World Cup remix, and
Yeah.
then but the problem with that one was I realized, okay, now everybody expects me to be the remix guy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't think I want to do that.
Yep.
But what I realized is like, okay, well, what's kind of the game or the thing that I can do infinite? What's the infinite game that I can
Yeah.
play? Simon Sinek, I believe, would say.
Yeah.
And it's like, speaking. I was speaking, even when I was in high school and college, to groups, youth groups, teams, things like that. Very motivational, but also just my story in general. And I have a wealth of experience in doing that. I have a wealth of perspective in how to best connect to people
Yeah.
through that. And so I've just navigated finding ways to connect dots in arenas that you may not have already thought of. So, I did my early iterations of creating kind of like content around juice was a lot of, pulling quotes and making quote graphics
Yeah.
and things like
A la
that.
Danco.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically. But and curating still is an option, but I think the problem now is because so many things have become curated, it's like, again, what is something like if somebody saw this, if somebody ripped this from my page and put it on a different page, would somebody say, "Oh, that's from Be
Yeah.
Nice," like that? I know where you got that from,
Yeah.
and I think that's just how my perspective as an artist in this season has kind of approached. And so a lot of things have been slow.
Yeah.
It's been tough because I want to do more,
Yeah.
but I also know that I'm building something hopefully that will last.
Yeah, for sure. That's the tricky part of the way our brains are wired, but also our want to constantly do things.
Yes.
As like, I love the idea of putting stuff out,
Yes.
but also I do understand from years of experience of putting stuff out that didn't work, of kind of how stuff needs to go, and I need to
Yes.
have somewhat of a plan behind it and
Yeah.
somewhat of like longevity plan behind it, and it's like I
Yes.
can't just do like what you were saying, a World Cup remix
Mhm.
and become the remix guy.
Because then it was like, hey, can you do a song for the Super Bowl? I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to be this guy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I mean, we got lucky enough that we hit the VeggieTales remix thing once and then immediately pieced out of that.
Yeah.
Like I hit out of that almost immediately.
And the beautiful part about what you doing it is y'all did it originally, so it'll build on itself.
Yes.
My remix will only exist in the content space because like I wish I could put that song out on Spotify, on YouTube, but I don't own the rights to it because it's a remix.
Yeah.
Now,
Because
grant, so
we did the thing that I never do not do this. This is the thing that I never recommend people do, but we didn't take our own advice, which is ask forgiveness, not permission. And we just full sent it. I straight up sampled that thing.
Yeah.
Did not definitely not legal.
Sure.
What I did, but they liked it enough to give us the go ahead. So they cleared it for us after the fact. So
well, that's cool.
which is fine.
Yes.
Shout out Big Idea
That is great.
for being chill about that. But then, we ended up doing the TV show with them too. So it kind of worked out for everybody. We helped grow their brand, gave it a lot more visibility.
But I think that's the thing is, when you have a value offering that is profitable. I'm trying to stay away from saying profitable because I feel like so many people only equate value to profit. But I mean, y'all were able to, again, attention.
That's what we did.
You brought nostalgia, which is, I told somebody, that is going to be the ever-growing genre. Nostalgia. Because every single future day, today becomes the past.
Yeah.
And so it's like the nostalgia of what was.
I don't know if you know James Tucker. You know him? He's a country artist. He's from around here. I produced some stuff for him, but he's killer songwriter.
Yeah.
I actually need to intro you guys.
Okay.
But he talks about he's talked about to me a lot is like that is the way he writes songs. Is his songs have a tinge of nostalgia for him, even though you've never you may not have ever experienced it.
Yep.
He writes songs about family growing up in the backwoods of a farm and his dad being a preacher and going off and doing that, and how his dad would come home late at night and teach him like family ties stuff, and they would have dinner together. And it's like, I may have never experienced that, but that song makes me feel like I'm experiencing it. Another thing, he has a song that we worked on together called "Stay Home Tonight," and it's a song about him coming off the road and his wife, him being like, "Yeah, let's go out to the bar and like grab a drink," and before they had kids and stuff, and his wife was like, I mean, I guess, but we could all just stay home. And like that's a very reminiscent thing where it's like, oh, okay. I've never experienced that personally, but I understand like the feeling of this now.
Yeah. I think that's the good thing about artists, true artists, and they can evoke an emotion you didn't even know you had.
Yeah.
You know, they can implant a memory that you haven't even experienced.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that's good songwriting right there. Yeah. Shout out James. James is good people. He we had the pleasure of playing the Ryman with him.
Oh, nice.
Which was really sick last year.
Cool.
We opened up for this other artist called Dylan Gossett. He's like in the folk genre, folk country kind of thing. He blew up on TikTok, kind of one of those.
Yeah.
Great guy. But we got to play the Ryman, sold out with him. It was really, really sick last year. I don't normally play country music, but I'll do it for that.
Sure.
But so, okay, if people want to take some things away from this, let's talk about how maybe they can find their own juice.
Ooh, good question.
For this.
Great question. So I think for me, what I've learned is juice has the ability to kind of be a catalyst. You know it when you see it. And so I've realized that you can only make a difference if you're willing to be different. And so the 4 things that I've kind of realized is, within kind of the sphere of juice. I was trying not to say juice world because, there's, but the domain of juice.
Of all that is juice.
All that is juice. Is, you're either obsessed, shout out to Zach Pogrop. You're either obsessed, you're either an outlier, you are an outlaw, or you're just an oddball. And I think the reality is you look at anybody who is cutting through the noise of content and whatnot, and they fit one of those 4 categories because we are instantly drawn to contrast. If you think about like Tetris, the algorithm game almost is like, if you fit in, you disappear. And it's like, okay, how do you stand out? Do you stand out because people want to watch your mission and watch you succeed? Do you stand out because people want to watch you fail? Do you stand out because you bring something different to the table that nobody has ever seen? Do you have a different perspective than most? And there's just so many ways that I think if people really wanted to find their juice, they would stop and think. It's like, okay, like, what's something that is like a quiet curiosity that I have that, I might have gotten picked on for, once upon a time, or that, people may not know about me. So it's, it's always funny, everybody will ask me, like, man, you play any basketball lately? I'm like, not really. The biggest thing I've been doing lately is I've been doing jiu-jitsu for the last 2 years. Nice. And so, for me, I've realized combat sports have been a quiet curiosity for me. It's definitely something that I have kind of not discovered recently, but actually have kind of jumped in. I guess that you could call it that, my midlife crisis, if you will. Yeah. But realizing like, I bring a unique perspective to that as a basketball player. I bring a unique perspective on branding and motivation because I come from music. A an early adopter forecast. I think one of the things that I'm surprised has still not taken off is you see everybody, or I see a lot of people doing these edits on short form content and, like mashups, of podcast clips, of speeches and things like that to music and all of that. I'm surprised there is still not a genre of that on Spotify and whatnot that is like, because there are times where I will go to certain pages just to listen to the audio. I know a guy, and I told him this. I said, videographers, producing, like when they're producing the audio track and everything and the sound effects that go along with it, I'm like, a lot of times I will go add a song to my playlist because I heard it in a video or because I heard it, on something. And I'm like, there's something here. And I mean, even it's been here. You think about the songs that you knew about because they had a music video to it. It's really just engaging another sense. But I think that's going to be something that, and I've seen, some people, I think Gary Vee has probably tried it, but there's a guy, Akira the Don, that talks about, I mean, like he does that like probably once, twice a month. He's dropping a new project, but he's very much carved out his own niche in that space. But I'm surprised in the attention age that we are in, songs being as short as they are, it's only gonna be a matter of time before somebody, gets somebody to like, make a hook or whatever, and then somebody does so back in our day, we had the sermon jams. It kind of felt like that, but especially with, podcasts, a lot of times you really, you get people to podcast based off of short form clips. Well, what's another way that you can do that is, I mean, if you had a song to
it's true. It's true. I've seen a couple of those do really, really well. A lot of them like will be, there's one in particular that I've seen a couple different variations of, which is like, it starts with a Theo Von clip talking about like how the struggles of being like a man in an industry or like in current day, and then it cuts to like a bunch of other clips and it's like really good music under it and stuff like that. I've seen some of those. You're right, weirdly on Instagram doesn't really exist. It exists more on TikTok actually than it does on the others. I feel like it would kill on YouTube Shorts.
It would,
but I don't see it on YouTube Shorts, and I'm sure they exist there.
Well, but that's the thing too, is like there are some that are like longer YouTube videos. Like if you type in, motivational, whatever, like Kobe or, what's David Goggins, stuff like that. But I'm saying like, even within like a music space. So like, here we go. Here's a great example of, contrast. Jesse Itzler, the entrepreneur, apparently when he speaks at events, he has a DJ.
That's actually really sick.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, he's not waiting for like you to clip this and add music to it.
He's doing it for you.
He's doing it in the moment.
That's
and
really
I'm
sick.
like, but here's the thing. He came from the music world.
Yeah.
So that's why he has the perspective of that.
Interesting.
And I'm like, so I'm like, I'm surprised, that more people haven't gone that route.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
But it's again, being willing to talk about the juice, so being an outlier is, doing what few people are doing.
Yes.
Zigging where everybody's zagging, and so sometimes that's being an early adopter, and, the moment you stop is then the moment, everybody then picks up, and then it's like.
Or trying something, mashing multiple things together that have never been mashed up before, or a really good example of that I always use is people took two things that are correlated, but or three things that are correlated: improv comedy and Dungeons and Dragons.
There you go.
And that is huge.
Yes.
And Dimension 20, they're a Dungeons and Dragons like game like show.
Yeah.
And that's what they do.
Yeah.
professional improv comics play
Mhm.
Dungeons and Dragons together. Very simple premise.
Yeah.
Works incredibly. They just sold out Madison Square Gardens playing D&D, Dungeons and Dragons in Madison Square Gardens, sold out in New York City.
But but the good part about when you combine things like that is you're gonna get people from the Dungeons and Dragons community, but then you're also gonna get people on the periphery that
Yeah.
also enjoy comedy.
Yep, just
That
like
enjoy just,
niche
improv.
comedy, yeah.
And so they're gonna be intrigued enough. And again, a lot of times somebody may come across that because of the comedy part, and then they're like, you know what, I'd be interested in playing Dungeons and Dragons.
I've heard more people say that though than it's what a lot of it is it's a lot of people that are secretly nerdy that have always been like, always thought it would be interesting to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And have never had, but I just don't know how to play. I've never had an
Yes.
avenue to learn. And then
Mhm.
they show you through the show of how
Yeah.
to do it and how
Mhm.
to have fun with your friends. And,
Yeah.
a bunch of different avenues. Yeah, it is very, very much what you said of like trying to find a unique lane and combining two things or zigging where other people are zagging, where like
Mhm.
most Dungeons and Dragons games are going to take themselves super seriously,
Mhm.
way too seriously. They're going to be like, we are the knights of whatever, and we're going to do this thing. And it's like, guys, we're playing pretend with our friends around a table with dice. It's
Yep.
like, and you recognize that, and then
Yes.
you make it fun,
Yeah.
and you put comedy behind it,
Yeah.
and have a cool story.
Yes.
But-
Which is ultimately what it is. It's like if you're
Yeah.
able to, I mean, and that's with anything.
Sure.
If you can follow a story, you know what I'm saying? Stories. If you've ever heard somebody try to tell a story and you're just like, that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, bless their heart, every story is predictable.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be able to find it. But also, one could argue that's the same for music.
Mhm.
So for people, it's, juice and whatever, all of that is taking noise and converting it to music.
Mhm.
And a lot of times it takes somebody showing you this is where the music is in this. You got to know how to follow it.
Interesting. Yeah, that's dude, that's really good stuff. Well, Bryan, it's probably been about an hour and a little bit.
All good.
I don't want to keep you because I know you got to get going.
All
So
good.
if you want to tell the people where they want to find you, if they want to reach out and get more from you or learn more about the juice stuff.
Yeah, I am on Instagram, X/Twitter as
Yeah.
BeNice21. Also on TikTok if you did not delete it. But some of us, I honestly can't tell you if I'm gonna start posting back on TikTok. I may just have pulled the plug.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
is
that's
what
fair.
it is.
I understand.
But I'm there if you want to look at old archives
Yeah.
of stuff. And then YouTube is a slice of Be Nice.
There you go. Bryan, my man, it's been a long time coming. I'm gonna have to have you come back again.
Hey, I'm
and
always down for that.
dive more into some stuff, but try to be respectful of your time.
Okay.
So
Appreciate you.
yeah, man. Thanks for listening, guys. Like, subscribe, go follow Be Nice. He's a good dude and a even better baller. But we'll see you guys later.